Welcome to the Glass Lab podcast, where we talk all things product development. It's our goal every month to introduce you to the people, ideas, and development tools that are shaping the hardware products we all use every day. Hey, welcome back to the Glass Lab podcast. I'm your host, Drew, and today I have Mike Reynolds, the CEO at Innovatemap, and my co-founder here, Grant Chapman, CEO at Glassboard. So, Mike, thanks for coming on the podcast. Super eager to talk to you. Obviously, Grant and I, in the conversations we've had with you personally, have really always appreciated your advice. And again, really cool company, and just excited to learn a little bit more about you and Innovatemap here on the podcast today.
It's great. I'm really excited to be here and really excited for the conversation. So I'm grateful for the chance.
Yeah, no, it's always fun to talk with someone that works like we do, not in what we do. Most of the people that come on here are either, clients or code suppliers, things like that. But you do the same structure of work that we do, but in a completely parallel industry, which is so much fun because there are parallels, but there are things that are just totally different, which is my favorite part to pull apart.
Both informative and amusing.
Yes.
Given it's an analogous industry, but very similar solutions.
100%. No, that's the best. So I think the first question I've got is, what is your history before Innovatemap, and what kind of got you into doing what you do at Innovatemap? Or do you want to start with what is Innovatemap, Drew?
Yeah, we can start with the backstory. I think it's always interesting to see obviously there's lots of people that work there, right? But I think it's also interesting to see how the personal story kind of leads into the business story, because I feel like they're very rarely completely decoupled.
Not decoupled here.
I played with fire trucks my entire childhood, and now I'm a police officer.
Well, I can probably union both, so people don't think we're a fire truck making company. So Innovatemap is a digital product agency. So we will essentially the strategy and design side of digital products. And we'll describe a digital product as, SaaS software for sure, mobile apps, e-commerce, or similar to e-commerce, very highly functional websites. So anything that's coded and in the digital space, we're the strategy and design. We're not the coding. We typically will work with the company's technology team of choice. But we're really everything from the ideation, the definition, the design. And I know you guys do that in the physical space, which is why I've enjoyed our conversation so much. But that's a little about what Innovatemap does. And we'll partner with tech founders or existing tech ideas to really help their product resonate better with a user or a buyer through strategy and design. So
that's awesome. I've always pitched when people ask me, what do you guys do? I'm like, they're industrial designers for digital stuff. And they're like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great.
You do the human experience, the architecture, how should you walk through that feature, whatever that you're building. And you say, this is how it should be done. This is why it should be done that way. This is the way it should look. And then someone else will go code the back end.
Yeah.
And I think that's that I was able to connect people in the product space. Oh, now I know what they do.
That's great. So you wanted to hear about my background, so I've been in digital products for 25 years. And I started as a software consultant. That when I went to school in the late 90s, that was the hot job for many people. Tech products were hot. And so someone that would learn it and then go implement it at a client was really my first role in my professional career for, honestly, a solid 4 years. I took a role for a startup software company in 2000, marketing software company here in Indianapolis named Primo. I was one of their first consultants, but I had never been exposed to the software side. I was always at a consulting company where I just got trained in the hottest thing that was selling, became a instant expert, I guess, and then helped clients with it. But I got exposed to basically a software team, which had two prominent competencies that I had never heard of in school. I knew the engineering, so you had your technology team, then you had the product team. And in hindsight, that balance of having product people who are worried about, I always say, are we building the right thing? And then the technology team, are we building the thing right? Mm-hmm. And both I got exposed to being very essential to doing software correctly. As soon as I got exposed to that other department in the company, I was like, that's my calling. I want to do that. I found myself very empathetic, being boots on the ground consultant. I had opinion about how the software could work better. I empathized with the user. I had vision of maybe features that it could be, and I didn't really ever have a home for that.
Yeah.
And then when I saw that there was actually a role in professionals doing that in the software company, that's where I wanted to go.
I love that thought process of should we and then how do we?
Yeah.
I like that bifurcation a little bit, right? Because I also feel like as an engineer, to my core, always get caught up in the how do we, love the how do we, but I think it's very important to pay attention to the should we.
Yeah. And having been rooted in the software company, I have the utmost appreciation for engineering and technology. Like, you cannot get it done without that. And I'll kind of unpack, some thoughts I have around that, because it led to the founding of Innovatemap. But so I did that. I did that. Aprimo, to the credit to the founders, I was not a founder, really successful software company. So they were pioneers in terms of creating marketing software for, this is back in 2000. Marketers didn't think they need software. They're like, hey, PR, events, this is art. There's no science to this. And then things like email marketing started coming, and SEO, and really CRM, and the technology started to have a play. And what we found was marketers, to sell to them, having it well engineered was not enough because of the creative nature, or where this was not a market where software was adopted. It is today, but this is back in 2000. So we had to focus on the product skills, or we weren't winning the game. It was not enough to sell to a marketer that it was well built. It had to be intuitive. It had to solve the problems they wanted to solve. And they were putting on us a really high value on the things that you would not look at the coders for, but the things that you would look at the product people for.
The polish and the use case, right? Is someone who's not a computer person, because in the 2000s, that was a word you could use, not a computer person. Today, everyone in the working world uses them. But my mom did sales in the late 90s, early 2000s, and wasn't a computer person yet.
Yeah.
And everything was on the phone and paper and written down. And you had to make software that they could use. That was that transition from I've never logged in and been on the internet to I'm comfortable entering stuff in here. It feels like pen and paper for me, or at least like a file book that I know how to go look this up.
Yep. And I would say for me, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a comic book artist. I just never thought that there was a home for creativity and art in tech.
Yeah.
And then, so when this started brewing, I was kind of like, oh, yes, please. Most of my other product components had originated from the engineering side and just had product chops. So anyway, I took the baton to really help focus on the usability. And in our journey, had hired a UX agency 3 times. Disaster. I'll come back to that also, more on that a little bit later. But, and then eventually when UX as a competency, and certainly product management as a competency, really started becoming more commonplace, we knew we needed to bring that in-house. And at that point, the head of the product kind of put me in charge of that. When he left ways with Aprimo, I ended up leading product there. So kind of fast forward, Aprimo had an exit in 2011. And at that point, we were a successful company, 350 people in size, not 20. I had a product team of 30 working alongside the CTO. We had a tech team of 70. That software team was about 100. And I was thinking about my next chapter, very candidly. The big company thing wasn't I had done it before. And I was thinking my next chapter. Being the product guy, a lot of people were expecting that I would start another software company. They're like, oh, he's the idea guy. He'll start a software company and then we'll just join him. And I probably disappointed a lot of people because I didn't start a software company. But every time I would get a software idea, I knew all too well the founder stage, because I was part of Aprimo during that stage. It was a great stage. And you can't W-2 every role, and you can't have excellence across the board. It's just very challenging. So in the early stage, you have to lean on partners or unicorns or jacks of all trade. And I had gotten spoiled by having such a great product team, product strategy, product management, product research, UX, product marketing, all in-house.
And these individual roles where someone was an expert in their competency, they might not be useful anywhere else, but man, they were like the scalpel for whatever their role was.
Yes.
And that is so different than working with a team that is very broad, but not the scalpel.
Yes.
Right?
So I was kind of like, what stopped me from starting a software company is I'm like, I couldn't imagine getting this off the ground without access to this, and by name, these people. And so that kind of overwhelmed me. And that was the idea and origination between Innovatemap, is I built the firm I wish was available to me if I was a startup founder, which was access to an A-caliber product team.
Yeah. See, that's really cool, because I think that is such a similar feeling or narrative that we had like at Glassboard, right? Yep. Because the original set of founders at Glassboard, we all worked together on an e-bike product together, and we really enjoyed that. And we kind of just looked at how we all interacted and operated, and even how we interacted with other folks that weren't on the engineering team, and kind of a similar deal. like frequently we're looking for like other companies or consultants or partners to like fill in like gaps and stuff. But it's like everywhere we went just seemed like we were going to deal with just like this kind of like black box of like, well, you send over the engineering specifications and we'll send back, a black box that does all the things that meets the specifications. And so like even in the name, when we're, strategizing like glass board, like that transparency piece is what kind of leapt out at us. And we're like, people should be able to do engineering. Like you have to have an idea, you have to have specifications, you have to be aiming for a target, but it's so rare that you set out to design and build something and it is exactly how you envisioned it would be at the beginning stages, right? And so you really can't, and a lot of companies try to do this, you can't treat it like a black box where, you're like, well, this isn't the specification. Okay, well, we have to amend the specification.
Then we have to bill you some more, and then we have to go do the overhead.
And so there's like all of this friction of trying to do that. Whereas like now I feel like, we sit down with people and we're like, okay, we're going to build a great product. We really have we have some sense of what we want it to do, but we don't have a really clear sense, but like, we're going to do this together with you, and every step of the way, we're going to evaluate and decide on, are we going to keep this feature? Are we going to get rid of this feature? We may start to develop a feature that was way harder to develop, and we'll come to you and say, are you sure you still want this feature? It may add, 2 months to the product release date if we add this. And they may go, yeah, it's critical, we have to have it. And they'd make that decision. Or they may say, no, like we can cut that, or maybe we go in a different direction. But you've got to have that like real-time feedback, I think, to do a great product, especially in this market today, because most of the time when you set out to do something, like the market will have shifted out of focus by time you get to release too, right?
Yeah, and it was crazy times because I found in 2014. At that point, I would say in the digital space, 75% of products were SaaS, which meant probably 75% of operating organizations were agile, and so the responsibility to react, and then the ability to do so was paramount. Mm-hmm. And all these founders, they have the idea, they know they need coders, but that black box needed not to be a black box to them. They needed it demystified. They had 100 ideas. They had the budget to do 20. They needed to do those 20 well.
And how do you pick which 20? Yeah. And how do you pick how well to do them?
Yeah. So I kind of saw that opportunity. So I would say inspired by the startup space, but like I'll just preview. When we started the business, I knew the need was greatest with an early stage founder. They didn't always have money. So now this new role for me, like the business owner, CEO, came into play, that we started getting early on. A lot of early clients were really wanting, like I would call, even though I might have thought we'd be great at innovation work, a lot of renovation work. And so today we do both. And I like to cover that. So we'll work with ideas that are from scratch, or we'll work with one that exists in market, and we'll fix it, if something's off from a strategy and design side.
Yeah, no, and I couldn't mirror that more. We set out with Glassboard all wanting to do entrepreneurial things all the time. The founder that doesn't have any engineers in his team, and we'll be the whole theme for them. And they're great, but very rarely they have enough funding consistently to develop a product all at once. We'll work with them, get their idea to a render stage. They'll go raise more money, and then 5 months later come back. I'm ready to go to a prototype, and this process repeats. Yeah. But you have to find those clients that are the small or medium businesses that are businesses. They exist. They have sales. They're trying to V2 of something, and those are much more consistent clients. And then you have the larger clients that need a refresh or a skunk works outside of their internal development, and that's where we can shine there. And they're all different kinds of clients that all have a place in what we both do, right?
Yeah, perfectly said. And we're doing all of that, same audiences, same phases, just in digital. Yeah. So it's great.
And I think one of the things that you set out to do, and set up that you didn't want to have to start on if you do your own software product, was, how do I start with all the talent? And you can't afford that, right? When you start up, you can't afford a team of 15 or 20 day one. You have to get rolling and grow it. And I think that's what we both offer to our clients is, we have a team of 15 that all have some skill that you might need a little bit of, but we sell it fractionally. Yeah. Right. You're not going to have to bite off the whole thing at once. You're paying as you go to get the skills you need to bring your product to market, however your timeline looks.
Good.
Well, and I think there's the talent piece too, right? Because, okay, like you said, that you need this product unicorn, right? And they're always generally really happy on the front end. It's exciting. They're getting to do the new design stuff. Yeah. They're working on the branding and the colors and the app and all the digital assets that go along with that. And as that product matures, there's a lot less of cool, awesome, blue ocean type stuff to do. And it's like, how do you keep that person happy, in an organization or your company over the long run, and keep them around long enough until it's time to do that again. Whereas again, an Innovatemap, like, you can attract those people and basically tell them, hey, you're going to get to do this kind of stuff over and over and over and over again in, tons of different industries and entirely different ways. Right. And I think that sometimes also makes it easier to get and collate that talent, right? Because they're going to get to do the stuff that they love to do the most all the time.
Yeah,
right?
for us, and I don't know that I fully saw that when we started the company. I knew that there was a problem market. I knew that myself and the team that the original team knew very well, we were going to be able to solve that. But one of the things that was an ancillary benefit is those at bats truly have made our team the experts. Mm-hmm. So if you're a designer, you work for one software in one industry at one company for 2 years, that's all you know. Because we're multi-client, someone that's been with us 18 months is probably at 25 at bats and now has seen patterns. You go, I've seen that before. Oh, you're this kind of, you're a B2C app. That's very different than what I did over here for a highly analytical B2B software. And those at bats have really made their recommendations much more applicable and impactful. To be very honest,
Well, and I think that builds on a huge topic I love with what we do is the cross-industry work that we all get to do. We see this trend in healthcare that is enabling these apps that you're designing for the nurses to use better. Let's make up some feature. It needs to have this kind of a feature, and then someone comes to you from a completely another space, let's say automotive engineering or something like that wants an internal tool. We can put this button in this place because they need these options. We saw this in healthcare, and just cross-sell that idea. And it really speeds up innovation because, again, we're not reinventing the wheel for every client. You have your good ideas, you can reuse them, not send it to their competitors, but just use these great functions that you're picking up, which we use in engineering as well.
You can cross-seed the innovation between industries, right? Because sometimes it takes a long time for one industry to realize that there's a really good way to do this. It's just nobody in your industry is currently doing it. Your peer models don't exist, right? They exist elsewhere. You just can't see them because they're not in your, your narrow view of the market.
Yeah,
right?
We get that all the time. So we might have a medical software come to us and they're like, hey, this is a really hard problem because this software is for the nurses and they're not highly technical people and needs to be easy to use. That might be a hard problem in their eyes to solve.
Right.
But designing software intuitively for someone who is most familiar with consumer product patterns. Every one of our industries.
Right. It's your bread and butter.
That's not a new product to us. Or a new idea to us.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah. It's a tough bar to meet too, because I feel like today, people just they've come to expect that when they pick up an app, it's going to be intuitive. Nobody is going to read your user guide. And this is for physical product too, right? It's literally, I'm going to download your app on the App Store and I should be able to figure it out without, somebody explaining it to me or watching a video or reading a how-to guide, right? And I do think that's a big difference, just past to present. If it's not there and it's not innovative, people have a really short fuse of tolerance for something that doesn't work the way that they want it to.
I would say, just to speak personally, that's been a wind in behind our sales over the last 5 years. So our company's in our 9th year. The first few years, we had maybe a hope or belief that would be the case, or maybe vision it would be the case, because we were experiencing that with marketing software. But our first years, we were really pushing our product on the market. People didn't know what UX was. They didn't know what product management was. But the proliferation of consumer products has raised such a bar on how people expect to. Now people go to work and it's hit B2B software. They go to work and this software sucks. I'm not clicking on help. Yep. I'm not going to training. Why doesn't it work like the apps on my phone?
Yep.
And this has been good for us because it's kind of been like a wake up call, the value, the intuitive. So now we're getting that. That's been a nice pull for us that I don't have to convince everybody that that's real.
Yeah.
They get that their users want to enjoy and if they're a business owner or if they're a CEO, that adoption of the product is paramount. And that's not something that the coders are typically going to be worried about.
Well, and that's what I was just about to follow is that their internal team might be the technical side that is implementing the software, but those people don't often Venn diagram overlap with the UX, with the empathy, with the how would a regular person use this, because they're all technical, they're all coders, they're all nerds.
Yeah, the thing that sticks out in my mind, honestly, it just pops in my head, is just banking apps. 5 years ago, banking apps were just
dreadful,
terrible.
Yeah,
and now again, everybody, whether it's Amex, Chase, even your local bank branch is probably partnered with some platform or somebody that's, making it better, right? To me, that one was just jarring. It just seemed overnight banking apps just went from terrible to use to wow, this is actually
I think
it's actually pretty nice.
I think I can make an assumption about your audience. I could probably go here, but the first incarnation of UIs and user experiences, you could tell they were done by the engineers
Yep.
because they were literal reflections of the database tables.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
like, here's a grid, here's a view page.
Yeah, here are
here's this-
tabs. You can tab through
it's
it.
tabs, grids,
Yeah.
and view pages.
Or
and
even
then-
worse, an engineer sent down with an accountant to design the mobile app because
which had,
that's like,
then everything had to be included. There was no such thing as edge cases and
Yeah,
Happy
yeah.
Path and things like that.
Right.
But I would say, I mean, a business software that really pioneered, Intuit's very good at this. I mean, QuickBooks and when TurboTax, I mean, the early feedback on that was, this is literally walking me through how I think versus, okay, this was designed by an engineer. Now I need training to make sense of it. And I'm not saying that Intuit was the pioneer. Obviously, Apple was showcase for consumer products and things like that. But they really paved the way for an experience expectation that really helped the UX competency. And then if you're really deep in the bowels of it, the product management competency, because for us, we only design that with which has been prioritized by a product manager and user studies to say that doing this feature will have ROI and doing this feature has value. And then we very much believe philosophically, and so does this is a macro trend of the industry, user-centric design. So the product manager and the user feedback and workflow really drives what's designed, and then design-driven development. So in the digital space, nothing is coded that wasn't thought through by a product manager, designed by UX, and then engineering is just so excited to get that deliverable and make sure it's built well.
Right. Well, and I think from an engineering perspective, there's like two parts of what we do in the technical like development space. And there's that what I'm going to call like blue ocean discovery, where we need a new way of doing something because the product team wants this thing doesn't exist. And that's where the creativity comes out in the blue ocean. But we can get burned out on that if we keep doing blue ocean work that the product team is like, ooh, you spent all this time and effort, but it's not
Yeah.
exactly what we want.
Yeah.
So knowing and having that definition, like for us, from like an industrial designer or a user study of like, these are the features they really want, so we need to focus our energy and really polishing those helps us not burn out our creativity.
Yeah.
yeah, when you can see like a really well polished user experience as an engineer, like it makes you want to then deliver on that, right?
Yeah.
So it's like if it's already delightful to use, it can't be slow, right? Because it's like you've already raised the bar with like the UI UX. So certain things sort of like it's it elevates the bar for everybody, right?
Yeah.
If the app kind of looks not so great, then maybe you don't care if there's an extra quarter second of load time here or stuff's a little bit clunky here and there.
Yep.
But like if the bar is already really high when it goes to engineering, they're going to want to deliver on what they see in front of them, right? If it looks polished and it looks clean, it has an impact, I think, right?
Yeah, and these are expensive. If you think of yourself through a startup founder that has limited funds, or even a scale-up that's trying to succeed, these are really expensive lessons to learn in code with a real user.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to explain it's like building a house and putting up frames and pouring concrete first, and then saying we're going to fix things after you've lived in it for a month. Okay, a good architect or interior designer could have anticipated those workflows.
Yeah.
And actually seeded the build with them. And
Right.
we do a very similar thing there. Where like once you don't want to learn these in code, and so if you can get out in front of, the core workflows, apply modern UX design practices that everybody gets. Everything shouldn't be a custom piece of art, just for the record.
Right.
That you want to adhere.
The framework and the mocking and stuff has gotten so good, right?
Yeah,
Where like,
it's awesome.
I feel like you can very quickly, if you start to distill down like some of that usability and even like some of the like UI type stuff, it's like you can very quickly get to a point where maybe it's not completely, connected to a live database or anything, but it looks and starts to feel as if it is a live app, right?
Yeah, and we deal with that a lot of times. Like, what is a custom workflow unique to this idea or industry, and what's a tried and true workflow that really does not need reinvented? So if you're doing e-commerce, checkout and payment, you are doing the user a disservice if you're trying to reinvent that one.
Right.
Like,
there's
it'll
best
break the workflow.
Yeah,
they're like, here's shipping, here's billing, here's my credit card.
There's precedent of a workflow. Now, obviously, custom applications or new ideas are going to create scenarios that deserve a custom design to it.
Sure.
And I would say for our world, it's 60-40 on the custom. They're tried and true designs. We're not trying to treat those like an art project and make a creative statement, right? We're going to go with design. It's design, not art.
Yeah.
Like we have to, they have to be business minded and purposeful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes people go a little overboard and it's like, you get to the shipping page and it's just like more ads or more. It's like, I've done the shopping. I just want to focus on like putting in my billing information without being bombarded by like 50 other, design, whatever type stuff.
It's one of those like sales tactics, like, how many clicks do you really want to put between the user when they put it in their cart and when it's committed and the money's charged, right? Do you really want to have them have that much time to think of, no, I don't want these extras. No, I don't want to see that ad.
Between that. We're really big, and I mentioned me being a company artist. So this definition is very important to our team because we do a lot of design. We'll do brand design, because we also help the product on its go to market, not just the actual design of the app, but then how it's actually going to be designed to be sold. So we've got brand designers, we've got motion designers, we've got UX designers, but the key word there is designers. So this is not art, and art is a free expression of creativity. Design is applying creativity to a business problem with business constraints, and so UX or software. These are not art projects. And that's where a lot of our founders run risk, is they find someone they know, a nephew, a cousin that's creative, and these are not art. These are, all of our UX designers have been hired with a master's degree in human computer interaction design. This is a serious craft. Right. And so very hard for these founders to W-2 that, or even existing ones. Either early stage, it's very hard to W-2 that. For existing one, it's very hard to find talent that has had many at-bats and experience. And so that's been really good for us.
And how do you maintain that talent? Again, as Drew was saying, when you release a new version every 4 or 3 years, what does that person do in the interim?
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing that's helped our business model so much, is that most product development, the products live in the market before the next one starts being developed. Yeah. And you don't want those engineers sitting on their laurels being bored, looking for new opportunities in between the new development cycle.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up, and I don't mean to tie it right back to the founder story, but when I was in industry, when I worked for a Primo, a software company, as a product manager, we'd probably do a release every 6 to 9 months. And so that innovation, ideation, definition phase happened 2 months out of the year.
Right.
The rest of the time you were in enhancement, enrichment, the clients buttoning up, polished work. And I will just be very candid. The early stage was my favorite. It's what I wish I did more, and it's also the hardest. I said, I would say if you're a product manager, the first 0 to 30% of an idea is the hardest, and then the 30 to 100 is also hard, but it's hard in a very different way. And one of the things with Innovatemap, it's also in the name. We want to stay on that hard part. And so we're very, on that. The early definition, that's the fun part of doing product. At least it is for me. And part of kind of wanted to do that all day long.
See, it's funny. We actually at Glassport refer to that last 20 as actually the hardest part. And I don't think it's the hardest part. No, I don't think it's the hardest part, I think, for our people. Because we all love the 80, the first 80% so much.
It's the hardest part.
The last 20%.
Yeah, because again, generally, you're right. From difficulty perspective, yes, the first 80% a lot of times is way more difficult. But in terms of physically, the mental load concept of that last 20%, all of that polish and that fine detail and ironing out the last bit of it and getting it to manufacturing and all that, it's all very necessary. It's just, this is my personal opinion, it's just far less fun than the first 80%.
For our service, that is often the kind of product work that the client is actually well suited to take in-house, because that's responding to client customer support tickets daily. It's honestly, it's not the heavy lifting. It's and so a lot of times, and that's honestly in product management, that's where a more junior product manager starts. Is in I'm going to own an already existing feature, how it's enhanced and how it's enriched and how it's working for a client is very different skill set than I've got an idea in somebody's head that I got to bake the first 0 to 30%. So we've kind of chose for our firm to focus. We do the whole life cycle. I will say that. Right. If anybody's trying to figure out what we do. But I would say our sweet spot is in that early stage where you really can't W-2
enough of the different skills. And I think that's the hard bit. It's not the
it's research, it's strategy,
talent, it's the variation of skills,
design, prototyping, it's everything,
and it's that's the thing, is that last 20% is the least serotonin per effort. It's not that much effort, but it's not that much serotonin per effort, and that's the problem, that you end up with the creative guys that don't like that. And you got to make sure you feed them that new creative work often enough, intermixed with the last 20% to make sure they're happy. Because I think the people is what makes both of our businesses. Right?
For sure.
The tools are great. The tools that we both have access to do what we do has never been better. Right? One person can do way more than they can today than they did 10 or 15 years ago because the tools are better. But you still need the people to make what we do. Right?
Yeah. I remember your your wife's grandfather came through our offices and just like, he's an old school engineer, from Switzerland and brilliant guy. I mean, he's done some amazing stuff, but I think just his mind was just, I think, blown at like, for the relative size, the access to the tools and like what it was that we were doing, just like unfathomable from like his perspective, right? Because I mean, you get the videos of like thousands of engineers and like, white button downs, all like, behind drafting boards to just do, a thing, a component of an aircraft or something, right? For the military or something, right? And now like that's just 1 or 2 or 3 people, right? In like a small little like, desk now, maybe, could replace an entire floor of engineers, right?
And there's like a CNC machine in the background that you no longer have to be a machinist to know how to run. You just watch like 2 YouTube videos and the software does the rest for you. And like you're making metal parts and you're an engineer, not a technician. And it's that crossover has just been amazing for us. I'm sure it has for you guys too.
Oh yeah.
You can take your designers and artists to do the visual work, but put it in a structured software so that you can share it and get experience from it and manipulate it, not on a one-off piece of paper version.
Oh yeah, the tools are unbelievable. I mean, I could go on for hours about how it was 10 years ago versus it is today.
The codeless mocking stuff is actually amazing.
That's the stuff.
Even we've played with some of the stuff, Figma, Adobe XD, and some stuff.
I would say and just half of our business is helping the product resonate with the user, and that we've spent a lot of time talking about is the product managers and UX designers. But the other half is once it's been built, how do I have equipped sales and marketing, and how do I make sure it resonates with the buyer? So that for us, that's our product brand and product marketing team. And I share that to give context to like Figma's been incredible because we are rapidly designing screens and workflow, but then able to put it together and equip sales and marketing to actually demo it or value it, or almost like a movie trailer, like, hey, this is coming, which has value in the digital space.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
There's no unveilings. People hate that.
Yeah.
And so, the tools have allowed us to not only, help create vision of future direction with the software, but to convey its value and start selling it immediately without it being coded.
Right.
And that's, for some of these companies, especially in the digital space, the market dynamics are moving so fast that any advantage, like, first to get word out or first to, convey confidence that this is coming and it's going to solve my problem is incredible.
What helps you gauge market fit too, right? Because it cuts both ways. I mean, it can either be very validating or it can be like, we should not code this. There is no traction here whatsoever. And you wouldn't know that if you didn't actually put it in front of people and make it look real, right? Because that's the other thing too, is that some people, if they feel like they're interacting with something that's like half baked or not really all there yet, like they may not interact with it like the way that they would if it was real. So it's like crossing that threshold of reality where you can start to gauge like just feedback and sentiment like from the consumer, right? If it's too vague, they have no idea, and like you don't even know whether they will or won't engage, right?
I would say
once you get like a little bit further down that and you can start to gauge that, I think it's super powerful.
Yeah, like I would say 10 years ago, you were doing that with wireframes. Probably 5 years ago, we were doing those with, highly designed screenshots. You maybe show 3 to 5 hero screenshots to convey. Now we can do a full-fledged prototype demo.
Yeah, and then click through 8 screens and see the menu flow and be like.
But that allows you to validate really deep things like workflow and versus like with a wireframe, very tough to validate much of anything. Just because people need to kind of see with a little more reality. The hero screens, I like to call them, people could validate. Yeah, you're heading in the right direction. I feel like you've got the right concept.
Yeah.
But with the other stuff, you can validate like workflow.
Right. And like the actual user experience.
Yeah. Incredible.
No, and it's one of those things that you can now get buy-in from the non-technical people who are making decisions at your medium and large companies, right? Your CEOs, your directors that aren't engineers, that aren't the technical people on the ground, and also aren't working with the end clients every day. You need to wow them with this new feature so they say yes.
Yeah. You got to stage the house. Like some people just can't vision it, right? I mean, you walk in and the walls are bare and they're not the right colors. It's just like I can maybe see like I like the layout of this house maybe, but like I don't think I can see myself living here. But you put a little color on the walls and you stage that, and they're like, oh wow, this is perfect.
I remember that. People would ask for wireframe. This is 10 years ago, and I found they would stick with 20% of the people. No one could envision. It'd be like me showing you blueprints and saying, aren't you gonna love living here?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you do need to take it one step further for the non.
It's also this uncanny valley, right? So you don't want to get it halfway there where it looks messy and they think it's going to stay that messy through development. You have to get it over that uncanny valley so it really looks like the real thing, even if all the features aren't there because it's not coded. It's just this screen goes to here, goes to here.
And there's so many analogies to that in the product space, right? I mean, 3D printing for us is exactly that. I can literally take a concept or an idea and 12 hours later physically hand it to you and be like, do you like how this looks or how this feels or whatever, right? And it's just, we can do all the renders in the world and you know, in CAD and all that kind of stuff,
but
right?
It doesn't do it.
There's a lot of people, I mean, we struggle with this even today, that they absolutely love how a design looks on a PowerPoint presentation or rendered or whatever. And you 3D print the thing and you put it in your hand and they're like, hate it.
Yeah.
Do not like this.
That's incredible. I love hearing that. 'Cause like I said, we're similar. Now you're physical space, I'm digital space, but a 3D printing, you know, it's not in digital, but I totally enjoy hearing how that would work. I totally get it.
And I could even see it potentially. Do you guys run into this where like, if you have something that's mocked up in like a web browser, like on like a PC, do you ever have people like go through and they either like a workflow, but then if you actually deploy it on mobile, they change your opinion drastically?
Oh, without
just
question.
In the medium?
But I would say the tools allow us, for us, that used to be separate design efforts.
Right.
You know, now the tools very quickly can iPad, mobile, desktop renderings. The frameworks are unbelievable now where a lot of that, it's not nuanced anymore. A lot of that is baked in, the nuanced of.
So you can have the same backend and then you put different, you know, aspect ratios for the artwork on those pages, but you don't have to build the whole structure again kind of thing. No, and that's the amazing part. And for us, like that 3D printing, again, this is like 5 or 6 years ago. You could 3D print something cheap enough for a small business, but it was that uncanny valley. It had the layer lines and it looked cheap. And all the clients like, I don't love this.
Is it going to have these lines?
And nowadays with the new like Formlabs SLA stuff, you can print that in their gray resin, which is super neutral. So the customer can make a custom color and mix a leader for them, whatever color they want. Wow. And you can print it in their brand color with a super smooth surface finish. And they're like, oh yeah, this is what I want.
Wow.
And you can even like, if you know how much the thing's supposed to weigh, you can print the model so much of it solid so it just feels the right weight too. And this just prints overnight. And it's like, it really crossed that uncanny valley.
Love hearing this.
I hate this prototype because it feels cheap or fast or clunky versus, if this is what it looks like in the real world, I'd be thrilled. And you can actually give them that experience now, which didn't exist. No. It did. It was just way too expensive. And now it isn't.
Yeah. $100,000 machine is now
$3,000. Yeah. and the resin is no longer like, $800 a liter. It's $150 a liter, and I can't buy it.
It's still going to bankrupt us for sure. Like that'll be if you read in the news like Glassboard like files for bankruptcy, 80% chance that it's just resin put us under.
Yeah, I spent too much on parts for the 3D printers.
I think for us, I'm trying to think my industry, if there's equipment, it'd have to be the cloud. I mean, like I remember like when we started at Primo, the cost to just get servers and infrastructure and storage and everything being cloud-based to spin up a startup software company is, it's 3 to 5 people and a bunch of subscriptions to software. Versus like any capital expense, and that really changed the game. And for us, introduced a lot more, reduced the barrier of entry for someone with a digital idea.
Now, is that cutting you two ways because their expectation of their expenses is lower than it's ever been?
I would say it is for the. No, I think that has helped us more and hurt us. Okay. Yeah. I would say that like, it just means they're spending more money on like product design and marketing.
So they have the dollars to spend other places.
It's very hard to automate strategy, creative, and design.
Right.
And so they'll still, at least we've seen, they'll still partner for a premium there or really want excellence there to really differentiate their product. I don't think that is maybe the back end has commoditized a little bit and has had economies of scale. The design side is not yet. Yeah. Actually, the economies of scales are really more on our business end, because we're the ones producing. We're able to produce things quicker and get to outcomes faster.
But see, I think this also speaks to the difference between art and design, right? Because I think today the bar has probably never been lower to go get a pre-baked framework or a set of templates or something that can look nice. I feel like anybody today for $10 on ThemeForest can get a hero shot of an app. But to make it actually, be well designed and good to interact with, and that workflow piece and knowing how to architect that for sure I think is as difficult as it's ever been to do correctly.
I'd agree with
right? That. So I mean, it gives that false sense of like, again, the founder may look at the app and go, oh my gosh, this looks fantastic, but functionally it may not work well.
Yeah, I would say like 10 years ago, a requirement was I needed to look good. No, we haven't heard that in 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
They expect that it is.
Yes.
In fact, a lot of founders a lot of existing products thought they made it look good. Now it's not working. It's an adoption challenge. It's not a look and feel challenge. Yeah. So I would say that where you're going with that is we have felt that, look and feel is expected. It's going to look good. Now they want to make sure it works as we intended it to.
And that's helping you guys stand out, because I haven't met too many people that pitch themselves in the space the way you do, right? We get a lot of web dev shops that are everywhere, right? That half of them are really good at art and just trying to make something pretty, and half of them are the coders in the back end that'll just help you spool up your site.
Yeah,
and you guys are right in the middle of like, this is how someone's supposed to use the site. And that's so different than what most people are out there in your space, I think.
Yeah, I would say we get, some, thank you for that. Yeah, probably because we originated there. I'm sure they'll all catch up. I mean, if you were a coding first shop, you probably were like, hey, this needs to look better. And I'm sure that every development shop is probably investing in better designers, but maybe they're coming at it after the fact. Like we've coded this, now we got to make it look good or work good. Where we started there, yeah, that happens. I know sometimes because we're design minded, people think of like marketing agencies is very different, by the way. That's very different. We're sprinting alongside software engineering teams. We're speaking agile. We don't typically compete with them, but in early and pre-engagement processes, we might, just because we both have design, we might have to put ourselves in the correct frame of mind why we don't do it. Honestly, most of our clients, our most successful clients, we're partnering with their marketing agency as they're kind of like drawing eyeballs on our work and doing so well.
Yeah. We're trying to figure that out a little bit too, with that whole, ID side of things, right? Do you work with, does the client have an outside ID firm that's already kind of, done some of that look and feel of the product, and how does that made up with engineering? And again, sometimes it works great. Like it really can be really nice to come in and be like, hey, there's already kind of a design playbook to go after the actual product development, engineering and features to go with. And then other times it's like, can be a bit of a tug of war where it's like, hey, I know that you guys are married to this ID design, but like, you want this thing to have a battery life of 4 hours, and there's absolutely no way it's going to be that small in that shape or size or whatever, but meet these other requirements, right? So it can vary, I think. And we've tried to invest more in our resources. I think we've come more from the engineering, like technical direction, more towards that design, front end, artistic type of direction, right? Adding more of those people to try to, holistically do more and under one roof. Again, just so that you can kind of holistically set those expectations up, especially on the front end, better, right?
Yeah, what's worked for us, and we obviously learned this the hard way. We're not like any business. What's worked for us is to just be very focused on what we do well and what we don't do well. And instead of like saying, I'll just use a marketing agency. It serves us well to say, we're going to do these 5 things. We don't do these 10 things.
Right.
You still need them. Don't put us in a box with them.
Yep.
And that's helped.
And that's us in like the higher level software. We really are. We've maintained kind of that firewall for a long time. Like we will do a lot of the, the software that lives on the device, or even, working with kind of getting that data into like a back end system or something. But like once you get much beyond there, I mean, you need specialists, right? Like if it's AWS, like it's, Trek 10 or other folks like that, like you need them to do that portion, because it's so complex. You can't possibly expect us to be good at it, right? No, so, and other things too, like digital. I mean, with anytime people are talking iOS or Android app or the design implementation on any of that stuff, again, we're happy to share maybe some of the brand language and identity stuff if we've baked it into the product with that team. But it's like you guys are on your own from that aspect. So
and like regulatory is another one as well for like medical devices, right? Like the one that we don't want to get into because it's so expensive to upkeep that knowledge base. We don't need it all the time. Is that regulatory effort for FDA compliance and things like that for our medical devices? We're great engineers and we're more than happy to write down what we're doing and fill in the right paperwork. But someone please help us with that structure. And the consultants in that field are great.
Yes,
they're talented, they're focused, and it really makes for an awesome partnership.
But no, overall, Mike, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on and just talking today. I think you touched on like a lot of really neat facets, from personal life to Innovatemap to just kind of the tools and tips of the trade. So that's really like the concept on the Glass Labs podcast here, is just kind of just looking at, how people in both physical product, digital product, anything in the product development space, like kind of like what it's like to look under the hood. So appreciate you coming on the podcast today and, chatting with us.
This has been great. And as advertised, just a wonderful conversation.
Great.
So just really appreciate the conversation today. It's been an honor.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Yep. Thanks everybody. We'll catch you in the next one.
See ya.